Hello everyone, we're going to continue learning about Matplotlib. In this video, we're going to focus on some simple designing perspective for changing the visuals in ways that they're going to make them more aesthetic and at the same time learning those tricks to help us in creating visualization that will tease out patterns. So we're gonna just focus on a few very simple designing things, such as changing colors and styles and things like that. So let's get to it. So as before, we first and foremost import the modules we're gonna be working with. And then also, since we're gonna be continuing working with the air quality data, we just I've brought all of those data cleaning parts back here. So the data cleaning part is done. I'm also going ahead and adding the weekdays to the data set, as we're going to be using that part of the data for the rest of this video. So there is a weekday added to each row of the data. So let's continue here. So we have styles and colors. We could change the styles and colors of line plots very simply by just specifying what they are. So this video is really telling you where you can tell your function that you want a specific style or color for each line. So for example here, in those line space that we were creating, like linear, quadratic, and cubic, I want the first line of the line to be red with the style of dot dot. So that's how I represent that. So these are the possible styles. So if you have a solid line, like if a dash is solid line, dash dash dashed line, dash dot, and also colon is going to be dot dot line style. And then you have blue, green, red, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white. So these are all different names of colors that you can use as just one letter color representation. So I want it to be red with dot dot, and then I want the quadratic one to be green with dash dash, and I want the cubic one to be cyan with solid line. And I also added the X label and Y label and also the legend. So once I run this, now I can see, as I specified, the linear one is red dot dot red, and then the quadratic one is dash dash green, and the cubic one is blue with solid line. So that's very simple. This is one way of doing this. So sort of like showing the color and the style in just one input. We could have done this in a more straightforward way. This is simpler because you don't have to type as much, but this is more straightforward. You specify the color and also you specify the line style. So you say my color I want to be green, and my line style I want to be dash, and that's just going to work the same way. There are three different ways of specifying colors. Once you can just say the name of the color, as long as the name is recognized in the Matplotlib module, that just going to show itself. So you could just try out the name of the colors, and if it doesn't get into an error, probably the color exists and it just works for you. Or you could pass a number from 0 to 1. When you pass one number as a string, it's going to recognize it as a number that is going to be used for only gray, all the way from 0, which is white, to all the way to 1, which is black. And just gonna give you gray style, and you can change these numbers to help you create that effect you want. Or you could be passing the three numbers from 0 to 1 as an RGB style. So the first 0 of 1 number is gonna represent how much redness are the first letter, how much redness you want your color to have. So if it's 1, the amount of red is going to be all the way up. If it's if it's 0, the amount of redness is going to be just going to be like 0 red. Then you have green, the same thing here, and then you have blue, RGB. So that's an RGB color style. The way it works, you can like create any color with the combination of these three colors, RGB style color. So once I run this, now I can see that as I saw, it's going to be drink, and it's going to be green, and it's going to be complete dash, and then I have the gray style here, and then I have created a color blue by just specifying these three numbers. So let's do some experimentation here. So if I put this as 1, now I can see that this is complete white. So it works the opposite of what I was saying. If it's 1, it means it's white. If it's 0, that's mean if it's going to be completely black. So that's how it works. And then this color, let's say RGB 0, so then 0. And once we run this, now it's going to give us complete red. If I change this to this one to 1, it's going to be green, and so on and so forth. And if I put all of them as 1, I believe it's going to be white. There we go. And if we change all of them to 0, I believe that's going to show black. So like RGB style coloring, we will use them in an example in a minute, are very useful to create any color that you might interested to see and the name is not represented. So I'm just like come up with a couple of random numbers, and this is the color that those numbers are showing. So before we look at an example to see how these colors and line styles are going to be helpful for us, let's be reminded of example 2 that we did in the previous video. So in the example 2, basically all we did, we created the line plot that showed a line for each day in the January 2017 for NO. And in this plot, what was happening for each line, for each day, basically the Matplotlib module was selecting a color based on its algorithms. And every time you add a new line, a new color was added. So in this example, I want to take the control of that basically, and sort of like be the one who is like deciding what the color and what line style are going to be. Those lines going to be represented with, and I'm going to do that randomly. So here I have created the collections of possible styles, and before I get into the code, I mean the only difference that you have this from this code and the previous one is like those lines and also the style in the beginning. If I start the rest of the code, I'm creating a style. I'm choosing a style. I'm doing that by using a random function. I'm basically saying I want a random integer from 0 to 3. So basically 0, 1, 2, 3. So one of these are randomly going to be selected. And then I'm also saying I want 3 random numbers between 0 and 1. And that represents a color that's completely randomly created. So once I have them, now when I'm plotting X and Y, I'm saying the color I want to be that color that I randomly selected, and the style I want it to be that style I randomly selected. And then I'm also like adding the label day 1 all the way to 30. And the X label, Y label, and the legend and the title that are added. So now once I run this, now I can see that the feel of the visual is completely different. It's more, it's like there are more styles and there are different colors that are added here. Every time I run this, the visual is going to be completely different styles and color because I'm selecting them randomly. So to challenge yourself a little bit to actually use these styles and color for purpose of data analytics, go ahead and use come up with the same visual, but this time use green and solid dash style for weekends, and I'm sorry, like style like dash dots for weekends, and use solid dash and red for weekdays. So separate the weekends from the weekdays, and this is what you will get after you've done this. So stop this video and give yourself a chance to do this before continuing to watch. So if I give you a little bit of guidance here, basically you want to separate the weekends and the weekdays by Boolean mask and go through the weekends and then the weekdays on the for loop, and then use a specific color and line style for them to be represented here. But you have to figure out what you're gonna do with the labels. That might be something new to do. And then the rest of them are very similar. So if you haven't completed this assignment, use this guidance to finish this challenge, and then continue watching to see if you have done it correctly. So the way you go about this is very simple. Like I said, you separate the weekends and the weekdays, and you say I only want the Sunday and Saturday, and then you say it's gonna only be the month 1, and also the species in O. And by creating these 2 lines, I'm creating one general Boolean mask that's helping me to filter out what I want. And then based on that working data frame, I get the unique date from it, and then I select the style and the color, and then I add them over here, and then I say that day to be the label, and then I go to for the weekends. And for the weekends, anything that is not weekends, it's weekdays. So the opposite of that one, and what we had already here, and then it's going to be the weekdays. And the same thing, the only thing that I'm going to change is going to be like the dash and the fact that they are going to be red for the weekdays. And once I run this, now there is a separation between weekend and the weekdays, as we can see here. As we can see that most of the weekends are smaller, or the pollution is lower for only 2 unique weekends that they were at the same level of air pollution. But we can start seeing patterns by being able to separate or make the weekend and weekdays stand out by using the style and the color.